Hello there. Today I'm going to be reading another creepypasta story called Spiderland. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video if you guys enjoyed it. Can we go on the roller coaster? Sure we can, Kent assured his son, whose eyes brimmed with hope and enthusiasm. Little Brian ran ahead towards the ride as its father walked quickly behind. It was one of those old, rickety coasters that won't keep you from falling out unless you hold on for dear life. Kent was always too scared to ride them as a child, but as a father, it was his duty to be brave. Hold on there, kiddo. You gotta be at least this tall to ride, proclaimed the ticket taker, thumbing towards the height requirement standee. I am. I grew 2 whole inches this summer, Brian boasted, then stood next to the grinning cartoon bear to prove himself. Looks like you just made it, the man said with a grin and gave a little wink to Kent. You two have fun. Hooray, shouted Brian. Come on, Dad. Brian grabbed the cuff of his father's coat and gleefully led him through the entrance to the ride. They climbed into a coaster car, and Ken taught Brian to hold on tight to the bar. He put his arm around his son, and they smiled at each other. Soon the coaster began moving, creeping up in the sky. Ken felt the anticipation slowly billowing inside him, Brian giggling excited by his side. This is gonna be so awesome, right, Dad? Yeah, sure, Kent replied, trying to seem convincing. He was having second thoughts, but it was too late for that. They were at the top now, and were about to descend. Kent felt the terror of that brief moment before the coaster picks up speed. Then the fun began. Brian and his father howled and laughed as the coaster went up and down and all around. No loops, of course. Kent knew he made the right decision, and it was a great bonding experience for the two of them. In his mind, he patted himself on the back, but as the ride came to an end, Kent was hit by a wave of nausea, rushing to vomit just once into the trash can. The ticket taker looked irritated as he put his arm out to stop Brian from exiting the ride. Who told you could leave? He snarled in a sinister voice. Brian looked shocked until the boorish man smiled and said, Just kidding, little guy. Kent ran over to protect his son from the inappropriate, sarcastic man, but Brian was fine, so he let it go. Are you okay, Dad? Brian asked in adorably concerned fashion. Yeah, kiddo, I just got a little sick, that's all. Were you scared? Of course not. Were you? Brian didn't want to answer right away. He just looked around like he didn't know he was being asked a question, so Kent tickled him until he cried, which left him with quite the appetite. Kent wasn't hungry after getting motion sickness, but he bought Brian some sweet carnival bread. Brian took a few bites and said he wasn't hungry anymore. Kent rolled his eyes, knowing this was a common occurrence for kids. Save it for later, okay? Kent requested, and Brian wrapped up the bread and stuffed it in his knapsack. I knew I was going to need this, he declared triumphantly. My son, the psychic, Kent joked, and they both chuckled. Brian was ready for another ride, so they walked around the carnival, looking for ones they hadn't tried yet. I want to go in there, Dad, Brian hauled, running towards a spooky-looking fun house. It had a spider motif and an equally attractive name, Spiderland Funhouse. Kent stopped dead in his tracks. "Oh God," he muttered. Ever since he was a boy, Kent had a paralyzing fear of spiders. He hated all creepy crawlies. But the idea that spiders trap things in the webs and then slowly suck the life out of them was more than he could handle. He prayed he could get his son to change his mind. "Brian, I don't think this is such a good idea." "Why not?" Brian had nary an inkling of why his father would object to a fun house. "It's just..." "What's wrong?" interrupted by the ticket taker, who seemed just as surly as the previous one. "Afraid of spiders? No way," Brian shouted defiantly. "I'm not afraid of stupid bugs." The ticket taker motioned to Kent. "I was referring to your dad there." Kent was a little ticked off at the employees of this particular castle, but he tried to not show it. He turned to Brian, who looked hopeful that his father would insist he wasn't afraid. "Of course not, but it doesn't look very safe. It looks very dark inside." "Nah, it's perfectly safe," assured the ticket taker. A group of harmless-looking teenagers walked up, wanting to go inside. "Dad, let me go in, please. Those other kids are going in." Kent gave in to his son's desire, but asked the group of kids if they could make sure Brian didn't get hurt inside, to which they applied. "You're not coming in?" Brian asked, a little confused. "I'm probably too big," Kent replied. "I would just get in the way." He didn't want his son to see him squeal like a little girl if a fake spider were to pop out of nowhere. "But won't you get bored waiting?" It was just like Brian to be concerned about the other people having fun. "I'll be fine." But Brian couldn't let his father stand around doing nothing at such an exciting place. He looked over at the tent that sat next to the funhouse, a glowing sign read "Fortune Teller." "Look at that, you can get your fortune told," Brian shouted, pointing at the tent. "Son, those things aren't real. It's just a scam." Brian looked as if he'd just found out there was no Santa Claus. Kent quickly backtracked. "I mean, the real ones wouldn't be at a cheap carnival. They're too busy helping the police solve crimes." Kent was quite satisfied with his brilliant save. Brian saw through his father's reels and cleverly played on his skepticism. "Just try it, Dad. It's just for fun, right?" "Well, you do have a point. It's just for fun, so why not?" Kent gave his son a hug and led him in the care of the harmless teens. The ticket taker and the spider-themed funhouse. It wouldn't take very long to have his fortune told, since there was no one in line. He walked slowly towards the tent with a strange feeling in his stomach, attributing it to the earlier motion sick. As he pulled back the curtains and entered the tent, he knew he had made some kind of fatal mistake. "I'm sorry, I changed my mind," he said, turning to leave. "Nonsense. What are you afraid of?" inquired a wispy voice from behind the round table. Kent had been accused of being afraid several times that night. Even though the accusations were valid, he wanted to prove them wrong. I know, it's just for fun, so why be so apprehensive?" "Precisely. Now sit down and I will tell you what you need to do." Kent reluctantly sat down at the table. To his surprise, was absent a crystal ball. "Wondered, where's my crystal ball?" the woman asked dryly. "No, I read palms," she informed him, and took his right hand into hers, tracing the lines on his palm With the pointer's finger, the fortune teller began to divine Kent's destiny. Very interesting, she mused. Of course I'm an interesting guy. Kent smirked at his charming reply, but the fortune teller paid no attention, continuing in a stern voice. You should stop looking for what you have lost. Kent was a little confused. As far as he knew, he hadn't lost anything. Haven't lost anything? I assure you, you have. She looked directly into Kent's eyes, giving him a shiver. I don't remember losing anything, so how can I be looking for it? It was a perfectly logical question. I'm sorry, but that's all I can tell you. Your lines speak very few words. Kent had more than enough of the fortune teller's suspicious ramblings. He handed her 2 tickets and bid her farewell. The teenagers were just exiting the funhouse, so Kent trotted over to retrieve his son. However, Brian wasn't with them. Is my son still inside? He asked them politely. Who? One of them inquired to Kent's surprise. My son, Kent replied firmly. You guys were going to stay with him inside the funhouse. I asked you to keep an eye on him. We've never seen you before, dude. Are you fucking kidding me? Kent growled. You think that this is funny? Is my son still inside or not? Where is he? The teens looked at each other in amazement of the stranger's sudden rudeness. Look, dude, we've never seen you before, and we don't know your son, so just leave us alone. Kent stood dumbfounded as the group strolled away, joking about how crazy he seemed before he could begin to wrap his brain around what had just happened. The ticket taker called to him. Hey, he shouted. Everything okay? Kent ran up to him, assuming it would be more corruptive. My son Brian, he went into the funhouse. Did he come out yet? He wasn't one of those kids, the man asked, motioning to the teenagers. No, why would I be asking them where my son was, if he was one of them? Kent asked angry. Hey, calm down, sir. How old was he? What are you talking about? He was about this tall. You saw him go in. You asked if I was afraid of spiders. Kent was furious now. I have no idea what you're talking about, sir. But if your son went inside and didn't come out, just go in after him. Kent pushed the ticket taker, who then grabbed his arm and jerked him back. That will be 4 tickets, please. I will cut the video right here and make another part of this story, because this is a pretty long story, but I hope that you guys enjoyed the part 1 of it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay safe and have a wonderful night.